April in Zone 9 is one of those make or break moments in the garden. The heat is ramping up fast, and if you plant the right things right now, you are going to be absolutely set for the next several months. Plant the wrong stuff and you'll be staring at a bunch of sad, burned out plants wondering what went wrong. So let's skip all that. Today we're going through 10 plants, 8 vegetables, and 2 flowers that are genuinely built for Zone 9's April conditions. Stick with me until the end, because the last couple of plants on this list are ones most Zone 9 gardeners completely overlook, and they might just become your new favorites. Armenian cucumber. Alright, kicking things off with number 1, and it's one that honestly deserves way more attention than it gets in gardens. The Armenian cucumber. Here's the thing about regular cucumbers. They hate summers. They get bitter, they get stressed, they get attacked by every pest imaginable once the heat spikes past 90 degrees. Armenian cucumber doesn't care. It laughs at the heat. This thing is technically a muskmelon, not even a true cucumber, but it looks and tastes like one, and it keeps producing through conditions that would completely destroy a standard cuke. April is a sweet spot for getting these in the ground. You've got warm soil, the days are long, and you can get a massive harvest going before the brutal, relentless heat of July and August really settles in. These vines are vigorous. We're talking serious sprawlers, so give them a trellis or at least a lot of horizontal space. They'll climb if you let them, and the fruit stays straighter and cleaner when it hangs. For starting seeds, direct sow right into your garden bed. Armenian cucumbers don't love being transplanted, so skip the seed tray and just put them where they're going to grow. Press 2 or 3 seeds about an inch deep, thin to the strongest one once they sprout. They germinate fast, usually within 5 to 7 days in warm soil. Soil-wise, these want good drainage above everything else. Work in some compost before planting. A solid 2 to 3 inches mixed into the top foot of soil does the job. If your beds are on the heavier side, a little perlite mixed in helps a lot. Keep the moisture consistent, especially while the plants are establishing, and you're going to have more cucumbers than you know what to do with. Now, as great as the Armenian cucumber is for beating heat, the next vegetable in our list might be even better suited for long-haul summer production. Let's talk about it. Yard-long beans. If you haven't grown these yet, April is a month that changes your life, or at least your garden. These are also called asparagus beans, and they are hands down one of the most productive vegetables you can grow in a Zone 9 summer. They are tropical plants at heart, which means our brutal heat and humidity, that's not a problem. That's their happy place. While standard green beans are wilting and struggling in the heat of June, yard-long beans are just getting started. The pods get, you guessed it, up to a foot and sometimes even longer, though most people harvest them around 12 to 18 inches when they're still tender. Let them go too long and they get tough and stringy, so stay on top of harvesting. The good news is once they start producing, they don't stop. Pick every day or two and the plant just keeps pumping out more. These are climbers, so plan for a trellis, a fence. The pods get, you guessed it, up to a foot and sometimes even longer, though most people harvest them around 12 to 18 inches when they're still tender. Let them go too long and they get tough and stringy, so stay on top of harvesting. The good news is once they start producing, they don't stop. Pick every day or two and the plant just keeps pumping out more. These are climbers, so plan for a trellis, a fence, or some kind of vertical support at least 5 to 6 feet tall. They'll use every inch of it. For starting, direct sow right into the garden, about an inch deep, a few inches apart, along your trellis line. Like most beans, they don't transplant well, so skip the pots and go straight to the ground. Germination is fast in warm soil. For soil prep, beans are nitrogen fixers, so they're not super demanding. Work in some compost, make sure drainage is decent, and you're basically done. Avoid going heavy on nitrogen fertilizer. Too much and you'll get a lot of lush green vine and not much in the way of pods. Let them do their thing, keep them watered, and harvest consistently. Okay, so we've covered two heavy-hitting producers, but the next plant on the list is in a completely different category, and if you're not already growing it, you're going to want to start immediately. Number 3. Moringa, also known as the drumstick tree, the miracle tree, and about a dozen other names that reflect just how ridiculously useful this plant actually is. Let's be real, moringa is not a typical garden vegetable. It's a fast-growing tropical tree, and in Zone 9 Florida, April is one of the best times to get it started, because the warm soil and upcoming summer rains are basically perfect growing conditions for it. This thing grows fast, like unsettlingly fast. Once established, the moringa tree can put on 20 feet in a single season if not harvested regularly, and once it's established, it's extremely drought tolerant. So what do you do with it? The young leaves are edible, highly nutritious, with a mild, slightly peppery flavor, and they're used in everything from smoothies and salads to curries and stir-fries. The young seed pods are also edible and popular in South and Southeast Asian cooking. And because it grows back vigorously after cutting, you can harvest from it repeatedly. For starting moringa, you've got two routes, seeds or cuttings. Seeds are easy. Soak them overnight, then plant about an inch deep in a well-draining spot. They typically germinate within 1 to 2 weeks in warm conditions. If you can find a cutting from an established tree, a thick woody cutting at least a foot or two long, that's even faster and more reliable. Just stick it in the ground in a sunny spot with good drainage. Speaking of soil, moringa absolutely cannot handle wet feet. It wants sandy, well-drained soil, which is great news for a lot of Florida gardeners who are already working with sandy ground. Skip the heavy organic amendments at the planting hole for moringa. This tree actually prefers lean conditions. Full sun is not negotiable. Give it space, give it sun, and mostly just stay out of its way. Alright, moringa is a powerhouse, but it's also pretty well known in gardening circles. The next vegetable? It's a true Florida original, and it has a story worth knowing. Number 4. The Seminole pumpkin. This one is special, and not just because it produces incredibly well in heat and humidity, but because it has been growing in this region for centuries. It's a genuine Florida heirloom, historically cultivated by the Seminole people, and is flat out one of the best squashes you can grow in our climate. Here's what makes the Seminole pumpkin such a big deal. It does what other squash simply cannot do in Florida summers. While butternut squash and acorn squash are wilting, getting hit with vine borers, and struggling to produce in the humidity, the Seminole pumpkin just keeps going. It's heat tolerant, it's resistant to many of the pests that destroy other squash varieties, and the vines are absolutely massive. We're talking plants that want to sprawl 20 to 30 feet. Give them room, or give them a very sturdy trellis. The fruit itself is round to slightly flattened, tan to orange, with a dense, sweet, golden flesh. You can eat them like you would any winter squash, roasted, pureed into soup, baked into pies. And here's a bonus. Mature Seminole pumpkins can be stored for months without refrigeration. Cure them on the vine, bring them in, and you've got squash well into the fall and beyond. For starting seeds, direct sow 2 to 3 seeds per hill, about an inch deep. Once they're up and established, thin to the strongest plant. April's warm soil temperatures make germination quick, typically 7 to 10 days. In terms of soil, work in a good amount of compost before planting, particularly in the planting hills. Seminole pumpkins are heavy feeders, so giving them a rich, well-amended start pays off big later in the season. This is genuinely one of those plants that belongs in every Florida garden, and if you're just now discovering it, welcome to the club. It's a game changer. Before we go on, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a video. Okay, we've got 4 down and there's so much more to cover. The next plant on the list is one that a lot of gardeners have never even considered eating, and that is honestly a shame because it's delicious. Number 5. Cranberry hibiscus. Most people know this as an ornamental, a stunning burgundy red leaf plant that looks incredible in the landscape. But here's what a lot of people don't know. Those leaves are completely edible, and they're fantastic. The flavor is tart, genuinely tangy, almost like a lemony sour note, and the young leaves work beautifully in salads as a garnish, sautéed into dishes, or even steeped as a tea. The older leaves get tougher and more intensely flavored, so stick to harvesting the young, tender growth at the tips. The plant produces continuously, so if you keep harvesting the tips, you're getting a steady supply of fresh leaves all summer long. April is an excellent time to get cranberry hibiscus going in Zone 9. It loves heat, it tolerates humidity well, and once established, it's surprisingly drought tolerant for a leafy plant. It grows fast. You can get a 4 to 5 foot shrub within a single season, and it's genuinely one of the lower maintenance edible plants you can grow here. You can start cranberry hibiscus from seed or from cuttings. Seeds germinate reliably in warm soil, typically within 1 to 2 weeks. If you can get a cutting from an established plant, that's even faster. Just trim a 4 to 6 inch cutting, strip the lower leaves, and stick it in moist, well-draining soil. It roots quickly. For soil, cranberry hibiscus is not particularly picky. It grows well in average garden soil as long as drainage is reasonable. Mix in some compost for a good start. Make sure it's in a full to partial sun location, and let it do its thing. It's one of those plants that kind of rewards a little bit of neglect. Overwatering is more a risk than underwatering once it's established. So we've got a beautiful edible ornamental on the list. Up next is another edible that flies completely under the radar. But once you understand how well it handles summer heat, you're going to wonder why you haven't been growing it all along. Number 6. Longevity spinach. The name alone is worth paying attention to. This is a perennial plant, meaning once you get it established, it just keeps coming back year after year. In Zone 9, that is a huge deal. Here's the situation with regular spinach. It hates our summers. It bolts fast, it can't handle the heat, and by May it's essentially over. Longevity spinach does not have that problem. It's a tropical perennial that thrives in heat and humidity. It actually prefers the kind of weather that shuts regular spinach completely down. That makes it one of the most practical leafy greens you could grow in a garden for summer harvest. The leaves have a mild, slightly succulent flavor and can be eaten raw in salads or cooked, stir-fried, added to soups, sautéed with garlic. They're nutritious. The plant produces continuously, and because it's perennial, you're building a long-term harvest system rather than replanting every season. You're almost certainly not going to find longevity spinach seeds in a big box store. This is one where you want to look for cuttings from a local grower, a plant swap, or an online specialty nursery. Propagation from cuttings is extremely easy. Take a 4 to 6 inch cutting, remove the bottom leaves, and stick it in moist soil. It roots reliably within a couple of weeks in warm conditions. For soil, longevity spinach is pretty adaptable. It does well in average garden soil with some compost mixed in. Partial shade is totally fine, actually preferred during the peak of summer, where some afternoon shade keeps the leaves tender and production steady. Once established, it handles drought reasonably well, though consistent moisture keeps harvests more abundant. Alright, let's keep rolling, because the next vegetable on the list is one that absolutely loves summer conditions and produces a fruit that most home gardeners have barely even heard of. Number 7. Calabaza squash. If you've never grown this one, April is the perfect time to fix that. Calabaza is a Caribbean and Latin American staple. It's sometimes called Cuban squash or West Indian pumpkin, and it is tailor-made for hot, humid climates. While butternut and other common winter squashes struggle badly in Florida's summer heat, fall apart under pressure, calabaza handles it all with ease. It's heat-tolerant, it's vigorous, and the vines are big and tough. The fruit comes in various shapes, often round to slightly oblong, with greenish mottled skin that can turn more orange as it matures. Inside, the flesh is dense and deep orange, with a sweet, rich flavor that works beautifully in soups, stews, and roasted dishes. It's also an excellent keeper. Well-cured calabaza stores for months at room temperature. Like the Seminole pumpkin, calabaza is a big vine. Give it space, a lot of space, or train it up a very sturdy trellis. Direct sow the seeds in April. Plant 2 or 3 per hill, about an inch deep, and thin once they establish. They germinate quickly in warm Florida soil, usually within 7 to 10 days. For soil prep, calabaza benefits from well-amended planting holes. Work in a generous amount of compost, and if your soil is heavy clay, work in some perlite or coarse sand for better drainage. Once the vines are up and running, they're tough and don't need a lot of fussing over. Keep the watering consistent, especially while plants are young, and then let the vines do what they do. 2 more vegetables to go, and the last one on this list is genuinely one of the most underrated crops you can start in April in Zone 9. But first, let's talk about jicama. Number 8. Jicama. Say it with me. Jicama. This is the one that tends to get the biggest reaction from people the first time they grow it, because what comes out of the ground at harvest time is a stunning, massive, crispy root vegetable that most people have only ever seen sliced up at a salsa bar. Here's the thing about jicama. It needs a long growing season. We're talking 7 to 9 months from planting to harvest. That sounds intimidating, but it's actually exactly why April is the right time to start it in Zone 9. Plant it in April, nurture it through the summer and fall, and you're harvesting sometime around November or December. That timeline works perfectly with Florida's climate. Jicama is a tropical legume vine. The edible part is the root, but the plant itself grows as a vigorous climbing vine that can get really large. The vines produce flowers and eventually seed pods, but here's an important note. The above-ground parts of the jicama plant are toxic, the seeds, pods, and leaves. The only edible part is the root, so keep that in mind if you've got kids or pets who like to explore the garden. The root itself is crisp, mildly sweet, and incredibly refreshing, kinda like a cross between an apple and a water chestnut. It's fantastic raw, sliced into salads or with a squeeze of lime, and it holds its texture when cooked. For starting, direct sow seeds about an inch deep after soaking them overnight to speed germination. Warm soil is key. April soil temperatures in Zone 9 are perfect. Jicama needs full sun and very well-drained soil, and absolutely cannot tolerate waterlogged conditions. Work in compost before planting, but keep the soil on the leaner side. Too much nitrogen and you'll get vine at the expense of root development. And give those vines something to climb, a sturdy trellis or fence at least 5 to 6 feet tall. It's a commitment, but jicama is one of those crops that produces something genuinely special. And in Zone 9, the growing window is actually ideal for it. Okay, that's all 8 vegetables, and every single one of them is worth a spot in your April garden. But we're not done yet, because no garden is complete without flowers, and we've got 2 that are not just beautiful, they're genuinely strategic picks for Zone 9 conditions. Let's get into it. First flower, pentas. If you've spent any amount of time gardening in Florida, you probably already know and love this plant, but if you haven't tried it yet, April is a perfect entry point. Pentas is a tropical flowering plant that absolutely thrives in heat. It blooms from spring all the way through fall, sometimes longer, without a lot of fussing or deadheading required. The flowers come in clusters of small star-shaped blooms in shades of red, pink, white, and lavender, and they are butterfly and hummingbird magnets. If you want to bring pollinators into your vegetable garden, which you absolutely should want, Pentas is one of the most effective ways to do it. It grows well in containers or directly in garden beds. It tolerates heat and humidity like a champ, and it's not nearly as thirsty as a lot of flowering plants. Once established, it's fairly drought tolerant, which makes it a practical choice for Florida summers where you might not be out there watering every single day. For planting in April, buy starts from a nursery rather than starting from seed. Pentas seed is slow and fussy, and starts are inexpensive and widely available. Plants in full to partial sun in well-draining soil with some compost mixed in. Space plants 12 to 18 inches apart if you're putting them in the ground. They'll fill in quickly. Pinch back occasionally to encourage bushy growth and more blooms. Pentas is one of those plants that earns its place in the garden not just by looking good, but by actively supporting everything else around it. Pollinators go wild for it, and more pollinators mean better fruit set on your vegetables. It's one of the smarter companion planting choices you can make in a Zone 9 garden. Up next is our final plant of the day, and it's another tough flower that doubles as a powerhouse for pollinators, and it's one that looks absolutely stunning in the heat of April and beyond. Gaillardia, also called blanket flower. And if you don't have this one in your garden yet, it's time to fix that. Gaillardia is a native wildflower. There are species native to North America, including some found naturally in Florida, and it is one of the most heat-tolerant, drought-tolerant, low-maintenance flowering plants you can grow in Zone 9. The blooms are stunning, bold, warm-toned combinations of red, orange, and yellow in a daisy-like pattern that looks like a tiny sunburst. They bloom for months, they attract bees and butterflies, and they genuinely thrive in the kind of full sun, hot, and sometimes dry conditions that stress out less adapted plants. April is a great time to plant Gaillardia because it gives the plants a chance to get established before Florida's peak summer heat arrives. You can start Gaillardia from seed. It germinates reliably in warm conditions within 14 to 21 days, or you can buy starts from a nursery for faster establishment. If you're starting from seed, you could direct sow right into the garden bed or start in small containers and transplant out. Soil requirements are minimal. Gaillardia actually prefers well-drained, somewhat lean soil. Heavy organic amendments or overly rich soil can actually lead to floppy growth. This is one plant where Florida's sandy soil is an asset rather than a problem. Full sun is a must. It won't bloom well in shade. Deadhead spent blooms to keep the flowers coming and allow some of the later blooms to go to seed if you want the plant to naturalize and come back. Gaillardia is a short-lived perennial in Zone 9. It may come back from year to year or reseed itself, so letting it set some seed is a smart move for long-term garden coverage. Between Pentas and Gaillardia, your April Zone 9 garden is going to be buzzing with pollinators, which means everything else on the list is going to produce better too. That's the beauty of planting with the whole garden ecosystem in mind. April in Zone 9 is genuinely one of the most exciting planting windows of the year. You just have to know which plants are up for the challenge. Every single one of the plants on this list is built for what's coming. The heat, the humidity, the long summer days. Get these in the ground now and you're setting yourself up for a productive, beautiful, low frustration growing season. That's all for now. Subscribe to see more.